couldn't imagine anyone else trying to fill Carlos DeVille's leather boots, Cameron Boyce did his character justice and helped turn the Descendants franchise into the empire it is today. Without Carlos, the VKs would never have stuck together or defeated their enemies. Here's why Carlos DeVille is the hero of the Descendants franchise.
My printer, my crown.
Oh. Yeah, about that. Right.
Before we get into why Carlos is a total hero, we thought it'd be appropriate to revisit his childhood. After all, it's here that we find out that despite his surroundings, Carlos has a heart of gold. In Isle of the Lost, a Descendants novel, we're introduced to a paranoid and jumpy Carlos. His mother, Cruella, treats him badly, forcing him to sleep on the floor in her dressing room, which is lined with bear traps. Thanks to his mother, Carlos is terrified of dogs, and she uses this to control him.
Mom said they're rabid pack animals who eat boys who don't behave.
Before the events of Descendants takes place, Mal is a big bad bully who forces Carlos to host her birthday party. During this time, Mal locks Evie inside of Cruella's dressing room, and Carlos saves her from the bear traps. Despite being raised to do bad, Carlos follows his big golden heart and does the right thing. And as a result of his kindness, Evie and Carlos form their very first friendship. On top of having a big heart, Carlos is also a natural leader. For the longest time, Cruella claimed that Carlos was a follower, but her only child knew better and longed to prove her wrong.
We don't have to be worried about how really mad our parents will be.
Carlos proved that he could stand up for himself and make his own decisions when he chose to be good at the end of the first Descendants film. His leadership skills led to him becoming somewhat of a hero on the Isle of the Lost. After all, Carlos went from being the runt of the Isle to a leader in a few short months. Another reason why Carlos is such an important addition to the Descendants franchise has everything to do with his character. Whereas Mal, Jay, and Evie would rather sweep things under the rug, Carlos wants to talk things out as a group. If it weren't for Carlos, the rest of the VKs might have lost touch during their time in Auradon. However, Carlos kept the group alive by being honest about his feelings and talking to his friends about their own. At the end of Descendants 2, Carlos realized that Mal wasn't doing too good. So instead of turning away in good VK fashion, Carlos chose to have a heart-to-heart with his besties. Being a part of Mal and Evie's girl talk sort of made him uncomfortable, but he powered through it. After abandoning his mother and his roots, Carlos chose to view his fellow VKs as his family, and he wanted to support them no matter what. Mal, Evie, Jay, and Carlos each bring something to the table. Mal is powerful and intuitive, Evie is fashionable and upfront, Jay is strong and loyal, and Carlos is the brains of the operation. The VKs wouldn't have gotten far without Carlos's help. In the first Descendants film, Carlos leads the VKs to the museum
2.3 miles from here.
and helps them in their attempt to steal the fairy godmother's wand. When Jay trips the alarm, Carlos uses that big brain of his to convince the alarm system operator that the alarm sounded due to a system error. If it hadn't been for Carlos, the VKs would have been busted and sent back to the Isle of the Lost in record speed. Carlos proves just how valuable he is once again in Descendants 2, when he literally saves all of Auradon from Uma and her crew of pirates. Carlos is a whiz when it comes to technology, which is why he creates the most high-tech 3D printer in all of Auradon. When Mal runs away and the VKs go to the Isle to bring her back, King Ben gets kidnapped by Uma and her crew. Uma is willing to trade Ben for the fairy godmother's wand. Thanks to Carlos, the VKs are able to 3D print a fake wand and trade it for Ben. But Carlos's heroism doesn't stop there. On top of being sweet, brave, and giving, Carlos is also open-minded. He faces his fears and befriends Dude the dog, forming an unbreakable bond. His love for Dude helps him realize that his mother tricked him into submission, which leads to him finally speaking up for himself.
This dog loves me, and I love him.
But if that wasn't enough, Carlos is the furthest thing from superficial. Despite Jane thinking she's ugly, Carlos falls in love with her. He thinks she's beautiful and loves her personality. If it hadn't been for Carlos's crush on Jane, Mal would have never been able to convince Uma that the 3D printed wand was the real deal. Mal used the fact that Dude the dog could talk to convince Uma that the wand was legit. But if it hadn't been for Carlos's crush on Jane, Dude the dog would have never eaten a truth gummy and learned how to speak.
You just gotta man up.
And while you're at it, scratch my butt.
So in the end, Carlos's big brain and big heart are what truly saved the day in Descendants 2. Sure, Mal turning into a dragon stopped Uma from getting her revenge, but Carlos helped the gang bring King Ben back to Auradon safe and sound. Although Carlos might not be the most obvious hero, he saved the day more than once. Despite being a little nervous when it comes to breaking rules, Carlos is super loyal and would follow his friends to the end of the earth. Who's your favorite VK? Tell us in the comments. Give this video a big thumbs up if you think Carlos DeVille is the sweetest VK in Auradon. For more videos about the cast of Descendants, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you next time.